So, is Ronel Blanco the early frontrunner for Cy Young Award?
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, check it out. I've got a lower third where I'm called Sully. I have been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and I'm now in my sixth season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Follow us on Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully with Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. If you're listening to us every day, please put down that hashtag Everyday Sully. Lets us know who's listening every day. And there you go. By the way, I got a new computer setup here. Got a new camera, a little clearer, and it gives me a little bit of a wider shot. So I gotta start decorating this part of it pretty soon. I just realized that's a function of my new setup that I wasn't expecting for those of you watching the video. And I'm going to be getting my new mic in here pretty soon. Trying to get a whole new setup here. New season, new look. And there you go. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the trivia question that I brought up the other day when I had our good friend Millard Thomas on the show. We're talking about the Diamondbacks. I said, who was the first person ever selected by the Arizona Diamondbacks in the draft? Essentially, who was the first Diamondback? And Scott Horstmeyer, who, by the way, does not agree with all of my Who Owns Baseball picks. We'll get to that in a little bit. Got it right. It was the D-backs' first pick was Nick Bierbrot. I think that's how to pronounce his name. He was so famous, I don't remember how to pronounce his name. He made a grand total of 5 starts for the Diamondbacks. So there you go. There you go. Actually, full disclosure, when I came up with that trivia question, I didn't know the answer myself. I just thought I kind of made that up right there. I thought it'd be an interesting trivia question to find out. And I confess, I looked it up. So if you put it on your podcast, I would not have known. We're doing a live cast. It is the morning of the 2nd of April. I didn't do the show last night, decided to sleep. But we have some people already on here, including good old Jeff Cohen, Everyday Sully, huge Mets fan, Jeff Cohen, who cannot be happy. But let's get down to brass tacks here. We've talked about a lot of things in this offseason. We talked about who's signing this free agent and where the A's going to do. And then there's the Ohtani situation. And some people think I'm hostile to Ohtani. I don't understand where that came about. And I did a whole thing about why do we follow baseball. I got kind of spiritual. I got a little philosophical. And then Ronel Blanco last night just showed us. This is why. No sport can do this. I mean, you could have someone unlikely come off the bench and score a bunch of points in a basketball game, or a backup goalie stop a bunch of pucks and help a hockey team win, or an injured quarterback and someone comes off the bench and leads them to victory. I'm sure that's all possible. But to have someone as unlikely as Ronel Blanco come out and dominate a game and essentially take over the entire sport for a night. I don't know what other sport could have an event like that. Ronel Blanco, for those of you who slept last night, made his 8th career start. He wasn't even expected to make the team. And he made his first start of the year after the Astros got off to a horrific start against it being swept by the New York Yankees to start the season in a manner that was like the Astros had leads, and then all of a sudden they lost the first 4 games, and in comes the Toronto Blue Jays, who could certainly hit, but you wouldn't know that last night. That Blanco kept pitching and he walked the first batter, and then he kept getting outs, and he kept getting outs. And the Astros' bats exploded, and Jeremy Pena found his swing again. But Blanco kept throwing those BBs up there, those BBs. And all of a sudden, you saw it was the fifth inning, the sixth inning. And because it's his first start of the year, that if he had let up just a little bleeding hit single in the fifth, he probably would have been taken out after 6 innings. And I probably wouldn't have a big problem with that. I mean, you saw that with some of the other, teams out there had pitchers who had very good pitching performances last night. Houck was terrific for the Red Sox, in Oakland. And you saw the Cubs, Imanaga. Is that Imanaga? I'm sorry. Sometimes you say the names for the first time. Charlie Morton pitched a real wonderful game against the White Sox, but they let up a hit here or there, and all of a sudden, it's early in the season. Let's not blow anyone's arm out. But Blanco kept pitching, and as Jeff Cohen said, I'm shocked that the Astros let Blanco go 9 in today's Manfred baseball. Sean Manaea was also terrific for the Mets last night. I know that, Jeff Cohen, but he kept going, and I'm glad that he was able to pitch the ninth, that it wasn't a combined no-hitter. Not that I mind combined no-hitters. I really don't. I think they're kind of funky. But they're funky when it's like a career, a solid pitcher, and then all of a sudden, he throws a ton of pitches, and then some relief pitchers tend to come in. I don't mind that. But I like this story with Blanco, and I saw he hadn't thrown a ton of pitches. It was 10-0, so it wasn't like stressful innings for him. And he came out and pitched the ninth. I thought, oh, that's cool. And he got the first 2 outs quickly, and then he got a little bit of wild. He walked the batter and everything, but then got that final out. And the Astros got the first win wearing those weird Space City uniforms. And they're weird if they're too weird for the Astros. But he got the no-hitter. This unlikely hero, who, by the way, was the last person put on the roster. He had to fight for his roster spot. He thought he was going to start the season in AAA. And oh yeah, last week he became a dad. His wife gave birth. So here's a guy, new dad, not expected to make the team, and he's not exactly a spring chicken either. I mean, he's not. I mean, he's a hell of a lot younger than I am, but he's 30, which is no longer a prospect. You're no longer looked upon as, oh, you're this fresh young pitcher. No, you're entering into journeyman territory. Maybe one of those territories where you become what is derisively called a quadruple A player. Someone who's, you're good enough to make some major league appearances, but most of the time you're in AAA and you'll come up if there's an injury. Instead, he came up and he threw a freaking no-hitter. The last Astro to throw a complete game no-hitter was Justin Verlander, who's basically Ronel Blanco is in his spot because Verlander's injured. Of course, the last time the Astros got a no-hitter was the combined no-hitter in the World Series. I have no problem with a combined no-hitter in the World Series. Your job is to win the World Series there. And I kind of like the poetic justice of Dusty Baker being always derided about how he handled his bullpen, and suddenly he handled his bullpen for a combined no-hitter. But I digress. This is what's great about baseball. The unpredictability of what's going to happen in one game to another. The Astros looked like they were struggling, and all of a sudden, the more unlikely hero pitches this great game and will probably spark the team because they're not a bad team. We all know that this is a 90-some-odd win team. And now turns out you have another guy here who's going to be a terrific pitcher. Sure, there are fluke no-hitters and the Philip Humbers of the world who threw a perfect game and didn't do much after that. He could be one of them, or this could be a situation where they found a diamond in the rough. I don't know, and neither do you, but these are the amazing stories that I want baseball to cultivate. Find the stories of the guy who barely made the roster, who's a new dad, and all of a sudden he bursts onto the scene like this. This is the reality TV. I hope you know that. If those other reality TV shows, as someone who used to work in that world, it's all fake. But sports isn't, which is why we can't have gambling scandals. This is a glorious thing that happened and showed us everything right about the game of baseball. After a lot of things bouncing around here or there about everything wrong, this is what we celebrate. This is why we watch it every day. This is why when you're flipping around, you go like, holy cats, I want to see this guy is throwing a no-hitter. Quick, flip over to see that. And anybody in America, except for people in Houston who are blacked out, can suddenly watch this wonderful thing of unfolding. Think about the fact that some of the great pitchers in the history of baseball, Greg Maddux never threw a no-hitter. Tommy Glavine never threw a no-hitter. Roger Clemens never threw a no-hitter. Ronel Blanco did. Folks, we follow the best sport. In some ways, it's not even close. So, viva Ronel Blanco. Even if you hate the Astros, this was a cool story. Hey, fans of daily fantasy sports, do I have a place for you? Prize Picks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. This isn't you playing thousands of other players. You can pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projection and watch the winnings roll in. This is the ideal time to make your picks in basketball, college, or the NBA. You want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like Meek Hill or Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Now, I'm going to play this week, and I have De'Aaron Fox of the Sacramento Kings. He's going to get 20 points. And then, you know what? I think Kevin Durant is going to pull down 10 rebounds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy. Let's talk a little bit about Locked On Sports today. Now, let me ask you a quick question about what you are watching. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news 24/7 on YouTube or the free Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is indeed your team every day. Other things are happening in baseball other than the no-hitter, and who knows what we're going to have unfold today. But you got to give credit where credit is due. And as much as I dislike to give credit to some of these teams, you know what? You got to do it. Right now, we got to give some love to the Detroit Tigers. Detroit Tigers, who are one of the 3 remaining perfect teams at this point. And they went up against Sean Manaea of the Mets, and they wound up getting a fantastic game. And all of a sudden, you look up and you say, not only do they have a perfect record at this point, but they got some good pitching from Skubal, from Flaherty, from Jesse Olsen. Shelby Miller has looked very good his first 3 outings out of the bullpen. You ever have that moment when you hear somebody, here comes, I was listening to the Mets game, here comes Shelby Miller, and I kind of do like record scratch. And I was like, man, he's still collecting a check. And of course, Miller, he did pitch for the Dodgers last year and was pretty effective out of the bullpen for Los Angeles. But he was someone who was, remember, he was a huge prospect for the St. Louis Cardinals in the early 2010s and was part of the team that went to the World Series in 2013, was an all-star later with the Atlanta Braves, and he pitched for the Diamondbacks in the Dansby Swanson trade. And then after that, he just kind of faded out. He would show up here or there. He did have that one good year last year coming out of the pen for LA, but now he's really reinvented himself. He was supposed to be a great, ace pitcher for St. Louis and then later for Atlanta, but he has really reinvented himself into a quality relief pitcher and has been quite the pickup so far for the Detroit Tigers. But also just take a look at, they got, Carson Kelly has driven in, already has 5 RBIs, already has an OPS of 1.12. Gio Urshela has been a nice pickup. Mark Canha has been a terrific pickup. Kerry Carpenter has done a good job. I mean, this is exactly the Tigers, who, by the way, I picked to win the AL Central. This is exactly what they need to do. Just win these games, pile these wins up early. Another team which I have to give a ton of credit to, and again, it's not easy for me to say this, but the fact that the Yankees are 5-0 uh, is buying Aaron Boone a lot of, and Brian Cashman for that matter, a lot of time. This was the point of the year they were supposed to be stumbling. They don't have Cole, and they don't have they weren't they have they're on the road against the Astros, who have their number, on the road in Arizona, the team that went to the World Series last year, whose bats are on fire. And give the team credit. They won the Yankees won the opener yesterday. Big pitching from Luke Weaver. And they were able to do it without using Clay Holmes. So it's good managing from Aaron Boone, where they wiggled out of a couple of bases loaded situations. And Stroman pitched well his first game. And look, if they're not getting a great start of the year out of Giancarlo Stanton or Aaron Judge, Juan Soto so far is everything you'd want. But the real story, in my opinion, is the combination of Anthony Volpe and Oswaldo Cabrera. They're playing the kids. These aren't big superstars. These are players who were brought up through their system. And we've all given the Yankees a lot of crap about their farm system and everything like that over the years. Well, now, two of the players who are sparking this team are the big products, the big jewels of the crown of their farm system. So, if we all were getting in line to treat Boone and Cashman as punching bags last year, you can't ask for a better start right now. These are the times you're like, okay, just hold your own and wait for Cole to come back. This is a gauntlet they're starting the season with. And so far, they've been passing it with unbelievably high flying colors, and doing it with, they got a not so great start out of, Nestor Cortez. They, Luis Gil and Carlos Rodon did not give them, any length as a starting pitcher. And someone like Luke Weaver comes in and does the job. Loizaga has come in so far and done the job. Caleb Ferguson, who I knew was going to be a good pickup, he's been doing the job. Nick Birdie, who they picked up at the last minute. So give Cashman credit. We were all quick to trash him. So if we're all quick to trash the guy, then we have to be quick to praise when things are going well. And by the way, I think I've wound up watching a couple of Pirate games recently, and they had they won a couple of extra inning games, and they had a game that was pretty close yesterday until they pulled ahead of they pulled ahead against Washington. They played Miami earlier. They played Washington. Got to give the Pirates a lot of credit, and they did it without getting a great start from Mitch Keller. Okay. But their bullpen has been really good so far. But the fun thing has been O'Neal Cruz and Cabrian Hayes, kind of like the combination of young kids where it's clicking in New York. The combination of Hayes and O'Neal Cruz are starting to click in Pittsburgh. And it's fun to see Andrew McCutchen, playing well again. And by the way, the first few games, Michael A. Taylor has looked really great. Who knows? It could just be a good week. But it's nice to see Michael A. Taylor find a home and do well there. So, you pointed out earlier that if you're going to be a central team, just pile up the wins now. Well, Detroit and Pittsburgh have been doing a fabulous job of that. And Detroit's been doing it where they've had to face some really good pitching like Minaya and the Mets yesterday. And the Pirates have won some close games, and the Yankees are running through a gauntlet. Can you win the World Series now? No. Can the Yankees go on a huge slide later? Of course. Could the Tigers and Pirates do it? Yes, but because these are teams whose expectations are not sky high, well, you got to give them credit where credit is due. And by the way, in that whole Shelby Miller And the whole Shelby Miller, Ronel Blanco situation, where you start to say, "Hey, who's this person you're not expecting to do well?" Pitching tonight is Casey Mize of the Detroit Tigers. Remember Casey Mize? Mize was the #1 overall pick in 2018 out of Auburn. And he came up during made his debut during the COVID year, didn't pitch particularly well. Had his rookie year in 2021. It was pitched okay. He only pitched 2 games in 22, didn't pitch in the major leagues at all last year. And so now he is coming back for really the first time since, he didn't pitch last year at all in any level. And so this is really the first time he's really pitching in the major leagues since 2021. And he is, save for 2 games he pitched in 2022. So this is someone who was the #1 overall pick, was drafted to be a big my ace. And I'm sure he could look over at Shelby Miller and go like, you were drafted the same way too. Who knows? Casey Mize may turn out to be a solid pitcher. Could be a Ronel Blanco situation, or he could turn into Shelby Miller, which you could have that's not a bad life to live if you're a major league relief pitcher. But what if he is an ace? Or what if he is at least a solid major league pitcher? Well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out as he takes the ball today in a game against the New York Mets. And we're going to take a good long look at it. Speaking of the Mets, they're going to have to take a good long look in the mirror. I know it's early and it's too early to go nutso, but sometimes you got to take a look and say, I wonder what our strategy's got to be, especially when things are not going particularly well. The season's about to start, and I just bought tickets to see the Red Sox play the Angels in Anaheim. And how did I buy my tickets? I got them through GameTime. GameTime is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all the baseball, hockey, basketball, music, comedy, theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from the seats, and their best price guarantee. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding you ways to save money. The GameTime has deals right up to the start of the event or even an hour after it starts in case you're going to a Dodger game. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, hockey, baseball, concerts, comedy, and more. Zone deals, they got them. You pick the section, GameTime picks the seats. You get big savings. And with GameTime Guarantee, which means you get the best price, if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. What? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets. The lowest prices. Do you know what they are? They're guaranteed. All right, let's talk a little bit again about the Locked On Sports Today channel. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. Before we go on, let's take a look at who owned baseball yesterday. Who owned baseball for April 1st, 2024? Obviously, Ronel Blanco threw the first no-hitter of 2024, blanking the Blue Jays with a 10-0 masterpiece. Not to be outdone, Shota Imanaga had almost no hitter of his own in the Cubs' 5-0 victory over the Rockies. Austin Riley reached base 3 times with a home run as the Braves cruised to a 9-0 win in Chicago. And Mike Trout homered twice, including a game tie as the Angels topped Miami 7-4, earning half wobs, including Riley Adams, who homered in the Nationals' loss. Sean Manaea, who was brilliant for the Mets, but they were blanked by Detroit. Kyle Muller gave the A's 5 1/3 innings of terrific relief, and Jose Siri doubled and homered. They all own baseball for April 1st, 2024. All right, and I've got a bunch of people writing in, like Adam Scott Bristol, been a fan of the show forever. Says Yankees are 5-0. Last time they did that was 1992. Oh wait, that wasn't a good year. Yeah, you things could fall apart. Things could fall apart here, but you know what? Jeff Cohen of the Mets is typing a novel in the comments section. Um, the fact that the Mets haven't won yet, and the fact that they're in a tough division, the fact that I don't have high expectations for them anyway, I have been screaming that the Mets have to use this as a rebuilding year. You can't rebuild in New York. The hell you can't. There's not been a major New York sports championship since the Giants won the Super Bowl over a decade ago. And no, I don't count Major League Soccer. You can be a long suffering New York fan. You absolutely can be if you've picked the wrong teams. And the fact that it's been over a decade since there's been a major New York championship shows that if you are using the rule of seven, if you're 17 years old or under and you're a New York fan, you shrug like, when am I ever going to have to see my team win? So I think, we're going to go through this month and you can't make any judgments until Memorial Day, which is basically the end of May, the beginning of June. But if the Mets don't turn it around, I would just go down and say, all right, Drew Gilbert, Luis Angel Acuna, Christian Scott, I want to see all their young kids up there. Just bring them up. Because if you're not going to win this year, then treat this year as the year where you break the kids in. You give them a year experience. You see what you got. Because a New York Met team that's built up through the farm and through smart trades is going to be the team that owns the city big time. And guess what? A team that will win in New York will suddenly become the most beloved team of an entire generation, whether that team's the Knicks, the Rangers, the Jets, the Giants, the Nets, hell, the Devils, the Yankees, the Mets, whomever team of that group, the Liberty, I'll throw them in too because they haven't won in a long time either. Whichever New York team finally wins and gives their team a parade will be the most beloved team of a generation. Now, this was Jonathan Curran says, we only care about the World Series, Sully, 09 or the year I was born if you're a Mets fan, which is 86. I'm assuming, or maybe 69, I don't know. But yeah, you wouldn't care about where the World Series. Fantastic. How's that been working out for you? You know, the Yankees haven't been in a World Series since 09, not 19. And next year, believe it or not, will be the 10th anniversary of the last Mets pennant. So if there's no New York team wins a pennant this year, which I don't think they will, I think the Yankees are giving us a hell of a start. And they could. I don't see them doing it. I think another team will be better than them this year. However, assuming the Mets or the Yankees fail to go to the World Series this year, then next year will be the 10th anniversary of the last time the World Series found itself in New York. 10th. And so guess what? That means that this whole notion of New York fans only accept the World Series, well, there's a whole generation that said, like, can we have one? Can we just see one in my lifetime? Yeah, that's where it is right now. So if it means rebuilding to get to that point, go ahead because they tried the whole let's go quickly buy one, let's get Scherzer and Verlander and all this. That didn't work, and they smartly pulled the plug on it. And if this year comes out as a stumbling and bumbling and bumbling and stumbling, then pull the ripcord early and say we're going to create the young team that's going to capture the city. Is it too early to say it? Hell, it's not even tax season yet. But that being said, build that team right away. Oh, by the way, Jonathan Curran makes a great point. He says, my daughter was born in 09, and she thinks I'm a liar when I say we always win. Yeah, because in your eyes, they don't. In her eyes, the Yankees are just another team. In fact, since she's been born, since Jonathan's daughter was born, more than half the teams in Major League Baseball have won a pennant, and none of those teams are called the Yankees. Here's today's trivia question, and it goes back to Blanco, who is more of an anonymous no-hitter thrower. Can you name the only person to throw a no-hitter the same year they won the Cy Young Award and the World Series MVP? Now that's a year. What player won the Cy Young Award, threw a no-hitter, and was the World Series MVP? That's your trivia question. Put it right down here at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I am your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Loving all that is right in baseball in the eyes of a new father named Ronel Blanco. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.